the great wealth transfer, and really how women are going to control a majority of the money in this country in the next few years as the wealth wave starts to change. Husbands pass on and wives inherit that money. So anyway, it's just a great, interesting story. And Gary, are you ready with that PowerPoint? Are you ready to rock and roll?
I am ready to roll.
All right. Well, for those of you who have not met Gary Ziegler, Gary's been my business partner for almost 30 years now. In a few months, as of February, it'll be 30 years that I've known Gary. And he's been the greatest example that I could ever ask of how to be successful in this business. Started here making about 26,800 a year, I believe, in his previous job. And now I don't know, Gary, what the exact cumulative number is, but I know it's over 8 million you've earned since you've been here, and you continue to just hit new heights of compensation. 70,000, I think, income last month. So this is someone who's getting it done, being an example of success both on the client side and on the recruiting. I think he's the number two recruiter on the team this year, number two only to Two Tree. So let's give it up for Mr. Gary Ziegler, Executive Marketing Director.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Tom. Couldn't ask for a better business partner than the amazing Thomas Sparkodelic Hansen. And we've got just an incredible team, and we're just getting started. I mean, the future is so, so bright. You know, if anyone getting started right now, James and Francis, I mean, literally, this is the best time to get started with our company and in our industry. And the future, I mean, I just can't, I'm so excited about 2026. And of course, like Tom said, we went to the TFA Exchange just recently. And this TFA exchange was the best one we've ever had. TFA is Transamerica Financial Advisors, and it's part of our security side of our industry. And I'm going to go through a presentation that Tom Matthews went through. And Tom Matthews is one of the original founders of our company. Super, super amazing guy, very successful, and he had more securities licensed agents than anyone in the company. But I'm going to go over this presentation that he went over that will really give you a good understanding of kind of where we're at with TFA and our company and the industry itself. So the first page that I'm going to go into talks about where he was mentioning about, hey, let's start with the number 801. So Tom Matthews started in the company in the 1980s. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right, was at 801. Can you imagine? 801. Now it's over 40,000, over 45,000. It was at 801 when he started. And this here is a graph going all the way back to 1984. And the Dow Jones is up over 5,018%. That's a pretty good rate of return, isn't it? Anyone like to get 5,818%? That was pretty sweet. But that was June 15th of 1982 is when Tom Matthews started in our industry. And then 98% of the growth of the stock market has happened since he started out within our company. And he said he had a front row seat to every uptick, every crash in the market, and every comeback. And then, there's never been, like he said, it's never been a better time than right now to be in our business. Not 1982, not 1999, not 2024. Right now is the best time to be in our business. This is the moment. And if you're not fully in, you're not licensed in our company, you're not active, you're not all in, you're going to miss the biggest wave we've ever seen, because the biggest wave has not been over the last 20, 30, 40 years. The biggest wave is coming. There is going to be so much money transferring hands from one generation to the next. And this here let's talk about the real reasons this moment matters. One of the pieces of information that he went over is people are quietly going broke. That doesn't sound good, does it? They're quietly going broke. There's over $11.3 trillion sitting in savings accounts earning just 0.40%. That's a very low rate of return. And of course, that means that your money would double about every 180 years. I don't think any of us are going to get a double at 0.40%. And then there's 1.2 trillion in credit card debt. And that's doubling every 3.3 years at 22% average interest rate. So there's a lot, so that's not good. That's not, the people should be averaging a better rate of return and borrowing their money at the lower rate. But of course, who knows the math? The banks do. And I was just over at Chase Bank yesterday, and they had suckers, and I did see a bowl of suckers sitting in the middle of the lobby. And so when you go to the bank, a lot of time, they're looking for suckers, right? So they give them a sucker. And then, but they said that banks hand out dum-dums in the lobbies, but we hand out Smarties, because we are not just selling products, we're teaching people how money works. And then another piece of information he went over is a young person just getting started in life. The American dream now costs over $5 million. Just the average American dream. Of course, there might be some American dreams that are going to cost more, some are going to cost less. But this is where he kind of went over, how much an average college education costs, how much a wedding costs, home ownership. If you have a pet, if you don't have a pet, you don't have that $39,000 expense. I've got a yellow lab, and he's been pretty cheap. He's only been to the vet for maintenance. He hasn't had big expenses. But you got health care, car ownership, you got retirement, you got annual vacations. So it all totals up to $5,043,323. But of course, every American dream is going to be a little bit different. And then it talks about the average college grad will only make $2.8 million in their lifetime. So that's the average amount that an average college grad will make. So that means that there's a $2 million gap between what life is going to cost and how much they're going to make. I think our company can help with that $2 million gap. Anybody think that that's a possibility? Absolutely. And then we talked about the three-legged stool, personal savings, company pensions, Social Security. The three legs are not as secure as they used to be. So we need to help people make better decisions for their future so that they can rely more on their own personal investments than relying on, because company pensions, very few companies have pensions anymore. And Social Security is not as secure as it used to be. And then when we think about, what people fear, most people don't fear death. They don't fear taxes. What they fear is running out of money. How many people, when you think about someone who's in their 60s or someone that's close to 70 or maybe in their 50s, one of their biggest concerns is running out of money. And we've got programs that provide guaranteed income for life. You can never run out of program, you can never run out of money with some of the different programs that we have access to. 64% of people fear outliving their money more than they fear dying. 45% of retirees are projected to deplete their savings while they're alive. And for single women, it's over 55%. And then it's paralyzing people. They're afraid to even talk about money. 1.7 trillion in 29 million old 401ks. So right now there's $1.7 trillion just sitting in old 401ks where people are not working for that job anymore, but they're sitting there. And I run across people all the time that they're like, you know what? I forgot all about that old 401k that I had now that you brought it up. So we want to help people with the old lazy money that's sitting there.
Hey,
And
Gary,
yep.
just to clarify how much a trillion is a million millions. So 1.7 million millions sitting in old 401ks.
Yep, and just to give you an idea, 1 million seconds is about 31 days, is about, no, it's about 12 days. 1 billion seconds is about 30, a little over 30 years. And then 1 trillion seconds is over 31,000 years. That's the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. And then people could be sitting on the very wealth that they're afraid they'll never have. And so we want to help people with the money that they have, whether or not they've got old 401ks, they've got current 401ks, they've got some IRAs, but we're giving them their future back. And then I love all the pictures that Tom Matthews put together in this presentation. Just so many good pictures. But we're helping individuals with the biggest wave we've ever seen. And then, but now let's, there's the great wealth transfer. I remember when I first got started in the business back in the 90s, they were talking about maybe a 50 trillion dollar transfer, a 60 trillion dollar transfer. But that transfer number has gone up dramatically because the cost of real estate's gone up, the cost of the market's gone up. But from 2024 to 2048, the boomers, just the baby boomers, are expected to pass down almost $124 trillion to their children and to their grandchildren. That's a lot of money, almost $124 trillion. And then when you take a look at where it's coming from and where it's going to, this here shows, you've got the silent generation, 78 plus, you've got the baby boomers, you've got Generation X, and then you've got millennials and younger. And then you've got who's going to be expected to receive that 123 trillion, $708 billion. You're in the right business at the right time. They say $105 trillion will go directly to their heirs. 70 trillion that of the money will go directly to women, and many managing significant money for the first time. And by 2030, women will control 2/3 of all the US private wealth. That's huge. Are all the women on this Zoom excited? You're going to be able to help out, but there's so many people that can benefit from what we do. And then this is just not a money shift, it's a mindset shift. And if we don't educate these families, that money won't last. A lot of people are going to waste money. They say most inheritances are gone after 5 years. Most inheritance. Can you imagine after 5 years of getting an inheritance, most people just blow it because if they don't know what to do or who to go to, they're going to go to the Cadillac dealership, the Lexus dealership, and they're going to go splurge, right? They're going to go on tons of expensive vacations, and then, but time isn't just money. Time, it's compound money, and when you take a look at 7%, your money doubles every 10 years. A 10% return doubles every 7 years. But what if you delay just 10 years? This is an example. If you have a 25-year-old putting away $10,000, that would grow into $149,000 if you just let it grow. And that's at a 7% rate of return. That's not 10, that's not 12%. That's just at 7%. But what if instead of a 25-year-old putting away 10,000, they delay it until 35 years old, just 10 years. Instead of having 149,000, they'll only have $76,000. That's a big difference. Just that one investment of $10,000. So we want to help people invest as early as possible and don't touch it. Just let it grow, let it compound. And then what's the cost of not knowing how money works? What we do at WFG and Transamerica is not sales. This is financial education with a mission. It's financial education with a mission. It's not about products, it's about people, their fears, their future, their legacy. we're the guides. We guide people on what to do and how to do it so that they can have a more successful future. We're the ones who show up when the banks and algorithms don't. And then we help people go from customer to client, from being sold something to being served by someone. That's why Vanguard, they did a study, and they said working with a licensed financial professional can add an average of a 3% boost to their portfolio every year. And if you go to an investment calculator and you put in an extra 3% over time, it's huge. It's not a small edge. That's incredible. It's a big deal. And that's a study that Vanguard did. But you want to know why this is the best time in history to be in our business. These are the reasons. These are just a few of the reasons. There's a lot more, but the $24 trillion in motion, 11 trillion trapped in low interest yielding accounts, 1.7 trillion lost in old retirement accounts, 5 million cost of living to live an ordinary American dream. A population scared to death about running out of money. These are all reasons, above and beyond the life insurance and the long-term care needs. It's just really crazy when you think about that. But who's going to step up? Anyone on this Zoom going to step up and go out there and make a difference? I went up to Appleton area today, and then I went over to Horicon, and then I didn't even have time to make it back to the house. I stopped by the office because I wouldn't have been able to make it back to the house in time for the Zoom. But it was an awesome day. But I just love what we do as a company. The need in the marketplace has never ever been greater than it is today. And I love that we are in a business that you can go out there and you can work this business into your 60s, into your 70s, into your 80s. Everything we do, it's for the most part, we're using our minds to help people. But I think all of us need to have a purpose in life. Having a purpose is huge. And I think helping people make good money decisions is a huge benefit to what we do and how we help others and making a difference. But let's change lives and let's build legacies. Let's go make history. Let's make the greatest era of financial education the world has ever seen. Now, just to get a little bit of a feedback from individuals that, from all of you, what are a couple takeaways that some of you have from this presentation? Who would like to share just real quickly, 10 seconds, what's 5 seconds? What was one of your what was one of your key takeaways?
There's money to be made here because there's people that need help.
Yep, there's money to be made because there's people that need help.
It's
Yeah,
not about the
piggyback on that.
product.
Go ahead, Lauren.
It's not about the product. It's about the people.
Yep, it's about the people. Two. Yep, no question about it. I remember a guy giving a training once and he said, "You know what? You know why I'm so convincing? Because I'm so convinced. I like that. Why am I so convincing? Because I'm so convinced. The more teammates you have that are very convinced about prosperity, about success, about making great decisions for their future, then that's a big deal. But who else would like to share quick?
Hey, Gary, since Tu was talking about replacing a whole life policy, I remember it'll be in February, it'll be 30 years ago that you helped me upgrade my whole life policy that I had bought from an agent with an investment-based life insurance policy, which has served me so much better. But I remember when we went back to talk to that agent just to teach him, he did not want to hear. He was just he just was like, I don't want to hear this is and it was so much difference. I mean, how my investment-based cash value life insurance worked versus whole life, and so a lot of us come through that client door, get our finances improved, and yeah, we get to see firsthand how good the products are. Like I know Tanya has also.
Yep, there's so many areas in life where sometimes you have people that are closed-minded. You have agents that are closed-minded. You have sometimes potential clients that are closed-minded initially. Like Tu gave that great example of a person that she was a little on the closed-minded side initially, but then she did the right thing and she opened up her mind. She decided to expand her understanding. And that's, every area of life, I want to have an open mind. I always want to be able to understand things from different health perspectives, what works, what doesn't, and what works from the economy standpoint. But in our business, we are so blessed because if someone wants whole life, we can get them whole life. If they want a guaranteed issue policy, we can do it. But most companies out there, they don't have access to all the options. They just pretty much on a permanent side, they just push whole life. That's all they got. And like they say, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If all you have is whole life, everything looks like a solution for whole life. But I love the fact that we can always do what's right for the client. But anyone else wanna share quick before we move on to the next phase of our training for tonight?
Gary, all I have to say that I actually like a quote that was on one of your slides, which was basically almost at the very beginning, that it said, "We hand out Smarties because we're not just selling products, we're teaching people how money works." I really like that,
Yep. Yeah,
Thank you.
that is awesome. Because I love the word empowerment. I love being empowered and I love empowering others. Because if you empower people, you give them, it's almost like, instead of giving someone a fish, you teach them how to fish, right? Instead of just telling them what to do, you actually show them what the benefits are of what it is that you're doing. And then they're much more of a crusader. No, but thank you for all your participation. And with all this opportunity that we have to help others, one of the best things that I'm committed to is building as big of a team as we can, a big team that's educated, that is empowered, that's excited, that wants to go out there and share the great news of our business and helping others and providing the education. So I think, like Tom always says, Gary, Tom times one is good, but Tom times 10 is even 10 times better. All of us need a bigger team. All of us need more people that we can help build a business. And I think back to how lucky I was to get started in our company. Joanne and her husband, Chris, introduced me to the business, and I'm so grateful that I was introduced. And I want to pay it forward. I love that movie, Pay It Forward. I haven't seen it for a few years, but I need to go back and watch that movie again. Because where much is given, much is expected. And you think about a business like this and how amazing it is to build a business that the whole business is about helping others. And while you help others, you get to help you and your family and build a legacy. So I mean, it's just one of the best win-win situations. But the number one thing all of us need to do is TTP, talk to people. So let's have Joanne, would you like to go?